Travis County, welcome back to part 3 of getting the most out of our clothes. I'm Tamara Schubert. I'm the Family Consumer Science Agent for NMSU Cooperative Extension Service here in Travis County. We've been talking this month about getting our clothes clean and removing those pesky stains. Remember, when you have a question about how to care for your clothing, always check those care labels. It's going to tell us exactly what to do. We're going to show another one here in just a little bit so you can understand what each of those little symbols mean on your clothes. It's part 3, and this week it's all about getting our clothes dry. The last thing you want to do when doing laundry is get that favorite shirt that you love so much. You've worked hard on getting it washed. You've worked hard on getting the stains out. You throw it in the washer or in the dryer and it comes out shrunk. We don't want that. So different clothing materials, textures, and colors and weights will all affect how we dry our clothes and what the best method to use is. This week we're going to learn about the settings to use, when to use the dryer, when to line dry, and when to dry outside. Remember, it's all about getting the most out of our clothes, and that means they look their best, they last their longest, and it's easy on our pocketbook. We talked about that in part 1 as well. As a general rule of thumb, anything that goes in the washing machine on the regular cycle or the permanent press cycle can also go in our dryer. But when you have questions or when in doubt, make sure to check those care labels. Any item that's required to be hand washed, those are items that are also going to be required to be line dried, preferably inside. They're no-nos for the washer and they're more delicate when they're outside. So dry those delicate items inside on your clothing racks. We talked in part 1 when we talked about getting our clothes clean that it was important to separate our clothes to go into the washing machine. So our goal is whatever goes in the washing machine can also be dried together in the dryer. So make sure we're separating our loads by our lengths and our non-lengths, our colors that bleed, our whites, and our fabric types. So those not only affect how we wash our clothes, but they also affect how our clothes dry. Most of the time you don't want to mix textures. So if you have a pair of jeans and a lightweight shirt, they don't go in the dryer together. You're going to end up with an overly dry shirt, which your dryer can burn, and still wet jeans. So we want to make sure that when we put them in the dryer, they're separated by weights. Make sure that we dry our jeans with our jeans because those are the same textures. And our shirts and our slacks and stuff can go together in a load. As you pull your clothes from the washer to put them in the dryer, make sure you give them a good shake and check for those stains. We talked in part 2 all about getting our stains out. If those stains remain after our wash, we want to go ahead and wash those again. Try something different from the solvent list in part 2 before we put them in the dryer. Those dryers are going to set those stains and they're not going to come out more than likely. There are only so many items that can go in the dryer. We talked in part 1 about how it's important not to overfill our wash baskets because the clothes need room to move around in order to get clean. Same thing in our dryer. We cannot cram our dryers full. They won't dry. We may think that we're saving time, that we're saving energy, but it's going to take longer and more energy to actually dry an oversized load than it is a regular load. So we want to make sure that the clothes have enough room to tumble and air dry in that dryer. So if we over cram, they're going to come out looking the same way they went in. They're going to be misshapen. They're going to be wrinkly. And more often than not, that means that we have to iron, which is one more heat and one more step to our clothing process. If you have large loads, sheets and blankets, stop those loads partway through, pull those out, move them around, rearrange them, and put them back in. That's actually going to make them dry faster and more evenly because they won't get wadded up in a bundle. When you're wondering what temperature to dry your clothes on, check the clothing care label to see what's best for that particular item. Some clothes may need a lower heat setting or require line dry. But if you don't have a clothing label on your clothing, you cut it out, it was pesky, something happened with it, take these things into consideration. Usually, whatever you wash your clothes on. So if you wash your clothes on hot water, usually they can go in the dryer on hot. So your towels and stuff that you wash, if you've got them in the washer on hot, stick them in the dryer on hot. 5 towels, 6 towels will weigh about 5 pounds. That's going to take about 15 minutes to dry in your dryer on hot. Items that need to be washed in cooler water. So typically those dry on permanent press settings. The setting includes a cool down cycle at the end to help guard them from getting wrinkled. So it lets them go. If you've got 12 shirts, 12 slacks in your wash cycle, those can dry in your dryer for about 30 to 40 minutes. If you increase the load size over that, it's going to take more time. Your delicate dryer settings. So if your care label is a delicate setting on your washing machine, it's a delicate or an air dry setting on your dryer. The thing that's different is your synthetic materials. So your nylons, your acrylics, your polyesters, and your spandex. If those are dried, dry those on low. More often than not, you want to line dry those items though. So if you wear a lot of stretchy stuff, if you wear a lot of elastic bands, undershorts, undershirts, things like that, you want to dry those on low or air dry them. Handy tip, make sure that you're cleaning your air vents in your dryers, insides and outs. Your inside filter should be cleaned every load. So that helps move your air and circulate your air. Your clothes will actually dry faster and they will dry more evenly. Do not over dry. So over drying certain clothing items like your cotton shirts can actually be harder on them and will cause them to shrink. It's best to remove all your cotton t-shirts and things like that a little bit before they're done while they're still damp and hang them out to let them finish drying. But be sure that before you put them away, all of those items are dry. Mildew will grow if things are put in the closet or your drawer slightly damp. To avoid wrinkles in your dryer, make sure that you're pulling things out of the dryer as soon as it's done. If that's not possible, run your dryer for about 10 to 15 minutes and let those recirculate. It'll cut down on the amount that you need to iron. So anytime that we're drying our clothes, we want to take into consideration the benefits of air drying those, whether it's outside or inside. So one of the number one things is that air drying saves us energy. It saves us money in our pocketbook and it makes less of an imprint on the environment. But line drying also cuts down on static clean. So if you've got a lot of fabrics that are staticky when they come out of the dryer, try those items on a line dry. Air drying will extend the life of our clothes. It cuts down on the wear and tear in the dry cycle, but it also helps to prevent pilling. Those little balls that we get on our fabrics in our armpit area, anything that rubs. So our jeans, we get little balls on. Line drying will actually help prevent those. Drying our elastic items. So our spandex or elastic waistband actually causes them to break down faster than our normal wear and tear. So if we wear a lot of elastic waistbands or spandex, we want to make sure that we line dry those items. Line drying, especially inside, causes the humidity in your house to raise, which helps with our dry sinuses during the winter or the spring, and it helps with our dry skin. Couple of tips and tricks if you guys like to line dry outside. Make sure that you keep your clothespins in a basket or a tub and not out on the line year round. This will cut down on the amount of dirt and things that you put on your clothes when you pin them back up to dry. If you have dark items, clothing, so your dark jeans, your black jeans, things like that, we want to dry those in the shade. That sun will bleach them. So turn them inside out, hang them by the pant leg, and dry those things in the shade. If you've got sheets, if you've got big comforters, things like that, take a coat hanger and hang it sideways in between them so it opens up that blanket and that sheet so that your air can flow through. Enjoy. Look at the benefits of line drying and air drying outside versus what we do in our dryer. Have a good week.